right, we're set up for the start of turn one. The light infantry start off on the road in column. All the rest of the troops are following behind. In a column move, if we were going to do a column move, you would play an action card on the lead unit, and as long as every other unit in the column stayed in that column behind each other, all the units in the column can move for the cost of just one command card. We're not going to do that just yet. The light infantry want to break off. They've set a few scouts ahead and discovered that this is where close range is for the rifles, which is 10 inches. Well, Tarleton is going to pass a card to the lieutenant who did not get any cards. Now, in the game, you can play one action card a turn on a unit or a battle line, which we'll discuss later. So this ace is 3 cards. I should mention what cards are. Color does not matter. Numbered cards are a single command point. Face cards are 2 command points. Aces are 3 command points. And it's worth noting that all the command points a card gives can only be played on that unit or the entire battle line. Again, more on that later. If you happen to play a joker is like an ace, meaning it's 3 command points, but it's like drawing 3 singles, so you can spread that out amongst up to 3 different units. So in this case, the light infantry, who can move normally 12 inches in the open in skirmish, are going to advance up to just shy of close range. And while they're moving, and that movement is 10 inches, while they're doing that, they're going to spread out from column into skirmish line like that. Up comes the leader. There's one right there. Now they know they're in range. They have a 12-inch musket range. They're going to attempt to volley up on that hill. By the way, I should mention that that hill is considered very steep terrain, and only skirmishers can go onto it. So the infantry here want to fire. Now in light bobs, we have a unique mechanism called who fires first. Many games, only one side fires, or sometimes both sides fire simultaneously. What we're trying to do here with who fires first is to reinforce the fact that higher trained units, which is how we rate our morale in the system, have a better chance of being under control and firing first. What we do is we now will roll a die for each of the 2 units, and for starters they need to roll equal to or less than their training value, which is anywhere from a 1 through a 4, before modifiers. I'll drop the dice down. The British have rolled a 5 and the Americans have rolled a 6. Now, the British infantry are elite, so their training value is 4. So normally they would have to roll a 4 or less to qualify for firing first. They've rolled a 5. One of the modifiers to help out is if you've got a leader or a lieutenant attached. They do, so that now drops down to a 4. There were no other penalties against them, so they are at 4. They are allowed to fire first unless the Americans can roll a 1. They did not. If the Americans are veterans, so their training value is a 1 through 3, they've rolled a 6. That goes down to a 5 because they have their officer, but they have no other way to reduce that number down. So the British will fire first, and that's because the Americans failed. Had the Americans gotten down to 3 or less, fire would have been simultaneous. So we're going to fire with the British first. You start off with units in good order, which everybody starts the game in good order, except for artillery. When you're shooting, you roll half dice. So the British have 8 miniatures, so they're going to warm up. I'm going to warm up, or so to speak, 4 dice right there. Now modifiers, they get another die because they have an officer attached. They get another 2 dice because they are elite. So they're firing at long range. Only one's hit. There we go, right there. And we did not get any hits at all. Now, that volley is the second action for the light infantry. So at the end of a second or third action, we put down a disorder marker. Now, units can take a certain number of disorder markers before they become spent, and that number of markers is 1 greater than their morale. So in this case, the light infantry could take up to 3 disorder markers before they are spent. So they are going to put that marker down. Now, before they decide what they're going to do with their third action point, the Americans now get to fire back. The Americans again start with 4 dice, just like the Brits. And I'll do a long reach, rooming house reach. So 4 dice, 1, 2, 3, 4 dice. They too have a leader right there. They are also firing for 1s because they're at long range. Here comes the roll. They have scored 2 1s. And as you recall in my monologue, 1s are magical. So we will roll them again. Another 1. It's open-ended magical. We'll roll that one again. It did not roll another 1, so it stops at 3 hits on the British. And whenever a unit fires, I like to put down a cotton ball because that reminds us the unit has fired, which can be important for return fire. All right, the British have taken 3 hits. What do we do with those hits? Well, the first hit on a unit always has to be a save. Now, since we are in skirmish order, we get the best save against firepower, which is a 1, 2, 3, 4. And we roll a 5, so we did not save. So we tip over a miniature casting. That miniature will stay tipped over until we deal with our morale at the end of their turn. The British have 2 other hits to deal with. They can either make any combination of another saving throw, take another disorder, or fall back. What they're going to do is they've decided they're going to fall back 3 inches for 1 of them, like this, and they'll take another disorder. So they moved up for 1. They fired, placing a disorder on them. Now they've taken another disorder as part of the damage of the fire. Finally, and there's 1 left on the ace right here. Finally, at the end of each fire system, we have to decide if anybody's leaders were killed or hurt anyway. The way we do that is we roll 2d6, and if we get an 11 or 12, that's rolling 1s and 2s, that leader has been hit. Let's start with him. An 8, no. Up here on the hill, a 7, no. So no lead in the air to the leaders. That's just now. Since the light infantry have taken damage, that we apply to the game what we call morale markers, which are these white pips. We're going to place 1 morale marker right there for the casualty, and 2 more for the disorder and the fallback. You always take a morale marker in combat for any hit that you were not able to save. So at the end of this phase, is for the British, they've got 1 command point left there. They've fired once, they've got 2 disorder and 3 morale markers, which are actually on Tarleton. They will take the last point of this ace and they will use it to rally off 1 disorder. And they'll take and put that right there. And that ace is now discarded for them. I'll now remove that so as we're using morale markers. So that's it for them. And they can now march on another unit, and they're going to bring on a unit of regular infantry, which will get about to here, and they can go 12 in column, but they were behind the line, so they're going to go right there, followed by a unit of cavalry right there. And as it's a march-on game, a little bit further forward so we don't knock somebody accidentally off the table, like that. And that's going to cost 1 command point because, remember, they chose not to use a column bonus card. So Tarleton will now play a single card to bring these 2 units onto the table. Tarleton will enter with the cavalry, so we'll put him right there. And morale markers always stay with the leader that took the damage. And that is going to be it for Tarleton's turn.